రసహృదయులకు నమస్సుమాంజలు. శిశుర్వేత్తి పశుర్వేత్తి వేత్తి గానరసం ఫణిహి అన్నారు ఆర్యులు. సంగీతంలోని మాధుర్యాన్ని శిశువులు, పశువులు, పాములు కూడా ఆనందిస్తాయట. శాస్త్రీయ సంగీతం ఓ అమృతధార. ఆ రసగంగని అందుకోవడానికి మిమ్మల్ని మనసారా ఆహ్వానిస్తున్నాం. మనదైన ఆ జీవకళలోని తీయదనాన్ని, చల్లదనాన్ని మీకు అందించాలన్న మా ఈ చిన్ని ప్రయత్నాన్ని మీరు ఆశీర్వదిస్తారని ఆశిస్తూ, ఎందరో మహానుభావులు, అందరికీ మా వందనములు.
Lately, I've been thinking about what movies and music mean to us. We lost Asha Bhosle last month. 12,000 songs, a voice that was there for every mood, every moment, and every one of us. And the outpouring of love from our listeners reminded us why we started the podcast. And then the Michael Jackson biopic released, a film about one of the greatest musical artists who ever lived. His genius, his complexity, his extraordinary relationship with his own craft. A global blockbuster reminding us once again that when a story about music is told well, it transcends everything. And today we are going to talk about another artist and technician who devoted his entire life to that same belief that art matters, that music matters, that cinema can be a form of devotion while still being entertaining. Kala Tapasvi Viswanath, a man who became one of the greatest directors in the history of Indian cinema and a man who made the masterpiece we'll be rewatching today. Asha Bhosle, Michael Jackson, Viswanath, three artists, three completely different worlds, but one truth that when you dedicate your life to your art with complete purity and complete conviction, the world eventually comes to you. This is what cinema does. This is what music does. It gives us the language for things we cannot say. It gives us company when we feel alone, and it gives us a way to understand our lives. Hello, friends. I am Bharat. Welcome to After the Interval ke baad, because the best part of any movie is not the movie, it's always the conversation after. One of the great joys of doing this podcast is that it brings people together. Film lovers, music lovers, people who carry these stories in their hearts and want to share them with us. We are going to watch one of the most iconic films in the history of Indian cinema today. A film that opened to empty halls and became a phenomenon through nothing but the power of mouth. A film that revived Carnatic music for an entire generation, and a film that Viswanath made with 13 lakh rupees that changed Telugu cinema forever. The year is 1980 and the movie is Sankarabharanam. Joining me today is someone who has loved the film for as long as she can remember. Someone who does not just listen to Carnatic music, she sings it, and someone who has been one of the most ardent fans of After the Interval, one of our most loyal and enthusiastic listeners from the very beginning. Radha, welcome to After the Interval. We are so glad you are here. Advaita Siddhiki.
అమరత్వలబ్ధికి గానమి సోపానము సత్వసాధనకు సత్యశోధనకు సంగీతమే ప్రాణము.
Fantastic, Radha. Welcome.
Thank you so much, Bharat. It's truly an honor to be here on After the Interval. Sankarabharanam is not just a film for me, it's an emotion, a spiritual experience, and a celebration of our culture and music. Though I learned Carnatic classical music for many years, I never pursued it very seriously. I would like to offer my apologies at the outset for any shortcomings or mistakes in my singing.
I think you're doing fantastic. I think you're going to do great. But rather, before we dive into the movie. Tell us a little bit about why Sankarabharanam means so much to you.
One day, after I returned home from my school, my father asked me to get ready quickly because we are going to the movie Sankarabharanam at Royal Theatre in Hyderabad. To be honest, I wasn't very excited. I had already seen the movie poster, which showed an elderly man dressed in a traditional panche, holding a musical instrument in his hand. So, as a 10-year-old, I assumed it was a film meant for the older generation and not something I would enjoy. What happened next was something I never expected. After watching the film, I was completely blown away. The story stayed with me, and I kept replaying it in my mind long after we left the theater. It was unlike any of the movies I had seen before. Until then, I was used to watching NTR blockbusters like Driver Ramudu, Vetagadu, and Yugandhar, where the hero appeared in colorful shirts and pants and fought villains and entertained audiences with action and glamour. Shankarabharanam was different. It introduced me to a world of classical music, tradition, values, and deep human emotions. The elderly man from the poster, whom I had initially dismissed as boring, became a character I deeply admired by the end of the film. Looking back, that visit to the Royal Theatre remains one of my most memorable movie going experiences. It taught me that great cinema can come in unexpected forms and that appearances can often be deceiving.
Fantastic, Radha. I am looking forward to diving into Shankarabharanam with you. But before we begin and talk about Shankarabharanam, I want to talk about the man who made it possible, the producer, Edith Nageswar Rao. He had come to Madras to be an actor. Rather, he appeared in a few minor roles. And then he made a decision that changed Telugu cinema forever. He decided to become a producer. He founded Purnodaya Movie Creations. And for the next 16 years, from 1976 to about 1992, he made exactly 10 movies. Rather, I have the list here. I'm going to quickly go through it. First one, Sirisiri Mover, 1976, Vishwanath directed, 2 national awards. Apparently, after the movie, Vishwanath suggested the name Purnodaya Movie Creations to Edith Nageswar Rao. Tayarama Bangaraya, big hit in 79. The magnum opus, Shankarabharanam, comes in 1980. Sita Kokachilika in 81, National Award. Then my all-time favorite movie, Sagara Sangamam, which we will absolutely rewatch in a multi-part podcast. Sitara Nandi Award, Swati Mutyam, Kamal as an autistic man, National Award. Actually, India's submission to the 59th Academy Awards for Best Foreign Language Film. Swayam Krishi in 87, Swarakalpana, and then, of course, with Chiranjeevi, Apad Bandhavudu. That was the last movie under Purnodaya. So 10 films, 7 directed by K. Vishwanath, nearly everyone a national award winner. And 2 of the 10 movies are in the 100 greatest films ever made in India. And to be able to have that kind of success, but also in every movie, there are just social themes running through each of them. The artistic purity and poverty in Sagara Sangama, the story of a special needs person and the remarriage of widows in Swatimutyam, the concept of rural dignity in Swayam Krushi. Edith Nageswara didn't just produce films, he was making such a statement about what Telugu cinema could be. And that is the best part. And for me, the thing that is mind boggling is that when Vishwanath came to him for the script of Shankarabharanam, even Vishwanath had doubts. To the point you made earlier, Radha, it was NTR and Krishna, and movies of this kind were not made frequently, but Edith Nageswar Rao absolutely had this vision that this movie would work. So one decision and Telugu cinema would never be the same again. Let's get into the movie a little bit. So the context, the year is 1980. Telugu cinema, like you mentioned, was dominated by NTR and Krishna. There was simply no room, or at least people thought, for a film about classical music, a social outcast, and this concept of devoting oneself to one's craft. And into that world, Shankarabharanam came, and it came into empty halls. So, rather, just a question for you. When you look at that body of work that Purnodaya and K. Vishwanath created and the messages that each film carried, what do you think they were trying to say? What did those films mean to Telugu society at that time?
The films that Purnodaya and K. Vishwanath created together were deeply rooted in Telugu culture while conveying universal human values. Films like Sankarabharanam, Swatimutyam, Sagara Sangamam, and Sirivennala explored themes of art, tradition, social equality, dignity, and compassion with remarkable sensitivity. What made these films special was that their messages emerged naturally through compelling storytelling and memorable characters rather than through preaching. They
Mhm.
entertained audiences while also encouraging reflection on culture, social reform, and human relationships. Their impact on Telugu society was significant, fostering pride in cultural heritage and sparking meaningful conversations. Even today, their themes remain relevant because they speak to timeless human values.
Absolutely. Were there any other Purnoyadaya movies that are near and dear to your heart?
Yes, apart from Shankarabharanam, Sagar Sangamam is the Purnodaya film that has stayed with me
No,
most
you can't say
deeply.
that.
Every Telugu person would be proud of that, movie. What moves me about is how beautifully it captures the tragedy of a gifted artist whose devotion to art is not matched by success in life. Through Balakrishna, portrayed brilliantly by Kamal Hassan, the film explores unfulfilled dreams, missed opportunities, and the quiet loneliness that often accompanies greatness. Directed with remarkable sensitivity by K. Vishwanath and enriched by the music of Ilayaraja,
కైలాసాన కార్తీకాన శివరూపం కమిదే లేని ప్రమదాలోక హిమదీపం
Sagar Sangamam lingers because it's not just about dance, it's about time, sacrifice, and the bittersweet gap between artistic excellence and personal fulfillment. It leaves behind a feeling of tenderness, melancholy that remains long after the film ends.
Very well said. Folks, if one's favorite movie has to be judged by how many times someone has seen it, rather, I can tell you that Sagara Sangamam would, for me, be the easy winner. I'm scared to admit how many times I have seen it. I probably see it twice or thrice a year because for me, and the reason why that movie stands out is it is a perfect 10 in so many categories. One of Vishwanath's best directorial movies. In many ways, Shankarabharanam was building towards Sagara Sangamam's epic, the way he has taken it. Kamal Hassan believes K. Vishwanath as his mentor, probably one of Kamal Hassan's finest performances. Peak Jayaprada, like a 15 out of 10 in terms of just the natural beauty. That song in Mauna Melanoi, I have watched it 1,000 times.
మౌనమేలనోయి మౌనమేలనోయి ఈ మరపురానిదే
You can go on and on and on about how well Sagara Sangamam has been made. Editha Nageswara Rao believed in the vision, but the vision itself belonged to one man, Kasinadhuni Viswanath, Kala Tapasvi. He began as a sound engineer in Wahini Studios, so he had the opportunity to learn cinema from the inside out. And for the next 25 years, before even Shankarabharanam was released, he had already built a body of work that established him as someone who believed that cinema could be there not just for entertainment. And his films were not just art house films that played to empty halls. So many of them were super duper hits. They filled cinema theaters, won multiple awards while carrying great social messages. So the partnership between K. Viswanath and Editha Nageswara Rao, in my view, is one of the great creative partnerships in the history of Indian cinema. And Telugu audiences by then definitely deserved more than the typical formula. So, 5 national awards, the Padma Shri, and then he won the Dada Saheb Phalke Award, which is given to the for his contributions to Indian cinema, the highest honor in Indian cinema. He won the Dada Saheb Phalke in 2016. And rather, one of the most interesting tidbits is the movie comes out on February 2nd, 1980, and K. Vishwanath Garu passes away on February 2nd, 2023. 43 years to the day after Sankarabharanam was released. So some things cannot be explained, they just have to be felt. So rather, clearly he was making a lot of movies that were different from the ones he was making around him. Classical music, the industry was already starting to go into pop. Social complexity when the movies wanted story simplicity and villains, unconventional stories, but was still printing money. And he kept succeeding every single time. So, what do you think was K. Vishwanath's secret sauce?
I think K. Vishwanath succeeded because he never made films about classical music or dance. He made films about people. Beneath the cultural setting were universal emotions: love, loss, dignity, aspiration, and sacrifice. He trusted audiences to connect with sincere storytelling rather than formulas. So while his films look different from everything around them, their emotional core was deeply relatable. That's why they worked. Not despite being unconventional, but because they were authentic. For example, take Swatimutyam. This movie tells the story of Shivaya, an innocent and kind hearted man with a cognitive disability who marries Lalita, a young widow, to give her dignity and acceptance in society. Despite being criticism from villagers who oppose widow remarriage, they build a loving family and a happy life together. The film highlights compassion, humanity, and the courage to challenge social prejudices.
Beautifully said, rather. Beautifully said. The He was really making stories that were authentic in nature. He was telling stories about people, their aspirations, their challenges, but using music as a medium to convey the story and convey the emotions, in which he truly stands out. And the name Kala Tapasvi is just perfect for Mr. Vishwanath. All right, let's get into the movie. I want to rather break this into two parts. Before the interval, Shankarabharanam essentially tells the story of two people whose worlds should never have intersected and what happens when they do. So, Sankara Shastri, a widower, a father, one of the great Carnatic singers of his generation, a man of extraordinary compassion. There's a scene in the movie where a young group of young men, they're mocking classical music, but he doesn't rebuke them, he challenges them. He teaches them the importance of music deserving respect. That is the kind of heart he has. That's him. And then there is Tulasi, the story, the daughter of a prostitute, born into a world that, in many ways, has already decided her destiny. But she's such a devout fan of Shankara Shastri. She admires him with a purity that really has nothing to do with desire and everything to do with devotion. And especially that scene one morning when Tulasi comes across Shastri teaching his daughter on a river bank, right? She hears him singing, she's thrilled by it, she begins to dance, she gets completely lost in the music. What's the song? Sariga, that one?
Rigapadapa, Sarigapadapa Gari, Rigapada Sanidapa, Gapadapa, Gapadapa, Gapadapa.
Beautiful, beautiful. So she admires him. She's watching him sing that song. She gets completely lost. And then she comes to her senses and she sees that he's seeing her and she's just terrified. She expects him to rebuke her, but he appreciates her sincerity and he continues to sing that. And so that is the moment between them, that single moment of grace on a riverbank. I feel like that is the first big moment in the movie. Rather, when you think about that riverbank scene, what comes to mind?
As a child, I couldn't understand why that little girl stood in the cold water shivering. Shankar Shastri's daughter, she was practicing music there. When I asked my father, he explained me that it was a traditional discipline believed to strengthen one's singing and concentration. And then came the moment that truly mesmerized me, Manju Bhargavi dancing to the swaras of Shankar Shastri. The way he continues singing for her and the way she responds, dancing with pure joy, like a peacock in the rain, creates something magical. When she finally bows and touches his feet, the emotion is overwhelming. That's the beauty of Shankarabharanam.
Brilliantly said, Radha. Such an amazing and memorable scene. Okay, so their worlds collide again later in the train. Tulasi is running away because her mom, she's trying to sell her to a landlord. She hides in Shastri's compartment. Her mother finds her and then publicly in front of everyone accuses Shastri of eloping with her daughter. But before that, when Shankar Shastri takes Tulasi to that event that where he's going to be singing and he comes off the train, you thought that was a terrific scene when he alights from the train, right? Why?
Yeah, in this scene, Tyagaraja Kriti plays in the background as Shankar Sastri alights from the train, accompanied by Tulsi. Yenta nerchina, yenta chuchina, yenta varalaina, kantadasine. Watching them both coming alighting the tray, Gopalam, the Mridangam player, wears a sarcastic smile as the lyrics of the Kriti mirror his thoughts at that moment. To him, the sight confirms his cynical belief that even Shankar Shastri, a man of lofty principles and spiritual devotion, is not immune to worldly attractions and has become captivated by a woman's beauty. The beauty and subtle irony of this scene can be fully appreciated only by those familiar with the Tyagaraja Kriti playing in the background, as its lyrics reflect Gopalam's thoughts at that very moment.
And another genius of K. Viswanath, Radha, especially in this movie, is he expects us to have some understanding because they're not actually singing. It's only the music of the Tyagaraja Kriti that's playing in the background. So, as the audience, we have to connect the dots. We have to play the song in our heads and then understand the meaning of what exactly Vishwanath was trying to convey. An absolute genius scene, no doubt. The next pivotal scene is when the landlord assaults Tulsi and she kills him.
Please allow me to clarify this point. Tulasi does not kill the Jamindar because he assaulted her. She kills him after he insults her revered guru. This act underscores the depth of her admiration, devotion, and respect for Shankar Sastri, whose honor she values above her own personal grievances.
What a brilliant scene. And then Shastri defends her at her trial. She's freed, but she's homeless and shamed. Shastri takes her in, and the rumors start to begin. Society thinks there is something going on between them. But again, it doesn't matter what the world thinks, it only matters what these two people choose to believe. Shamed, Tulasi leaves, the interval arrives. And then after the interval, the movie progresses forward, I think by about 10 years or so. Classical music has declined, pop music has risen. Shankar Shastri has lost his audience, his comfortable life, his place in the world. And Tulasi has this kid, Shankaram, a 10-year-old son, born out of that assault. But she has a dream for him, and that also talks about how parents have dreams and aspirations for their children, no matter what their situation or lot in life is. And this is where I think the title finds its true meaning. Sankarabharanam, the jewel of Sankara. In Hindu tradition, Lord Shiva wears this venomous snake as his ornament, Shankara's Abharanam. And I think that snake, the born of poison, transformed into something sacred by its proximity to the divine, is this subtext around the movie. So Tulsi wants her son to become Shastri's Abharanam, to be transformed, to carry the music forward. And there's a great scene where the son enters the household as a servant. Gradually, he becomes Shankar Shastri's protege. And Tulsi is watching all this from a distance. In the entire movie, there is no dialogue or conversation between Sankara Shastri and Tulasi. Again, just a genius move. She's never revealing herself. She's never asking for recognition. So towards the end, at Sharda's wedding concert, Shastri suffers this heart attack mid-performance. The student takes over and completes the song. And one, Shastri is overwhelmed by this pride and fulfillment, realizing that his spirit lives on. But two, he recognizes who the child is and he accepts the child and he connects all the dots because he sees Tulasi in the backdrop. And
Yes.
then, in my view, one of the most deeply symbolic moments in Telugu cinema, he removes his Abharanam, the Gandapenderam, the sacred ornament bestowed upon him as an honor, and he places it on the boy. So having done that, he breathes his last. Tulasi rushes on stage. She sees Sastri gone. The man she has revered her entire life. She collapses at his feet in grief and devotion. That is the whole film, that the music lives on. So Radha, question for you, that climax scene, the Gandapenderam, Shastri putting it on the young boy. Why has that scene grown on you so much over time?
You realize it isn't just an ending, it's a profoundly moving act of recognition and gratitude. The Gandapenderam is not merely an honor being bestowed, it symbolizes the survival of a tradition that many had dismissed. And when Tulasi falls at the feet of Shankar Shastri, it's not an act of submission, it is a culmination of years of devotion, sacrifice, and unwavering faith in both the man and the art he represents. When we are younger, we admire the emotion of the scene. As we grow older, we begin to appreciate everything that led to it: the misunderstandings, the social stigma, the loneliness, and the quiet dignity with which both the characters endured them. That's why the climax becomes more powerful over time. It starts feeling like a tribute to a guru, to a disciple, and to the timeless bond between art and devotion.
Absolutely. Brilliantly said, Radha. And you rewatched the movie recently. What hit you that maybe you were not expecting? How was it different this time?
What stood out to me was the generosity of the character of Shankar Shastri. After classical music lost its popularity, he fell into financial hardship and could no longer sustain himself through concerts. When he happened to meet the very mridangam player who had contributed to his loss of respect and standing in society, yet instead of holding grudge against, Shankar Shastri responded with compassion. Realizing that the other musician was also struggling to make ends meet, he willingly shared a portion of the money he had just borrowed. That moment revealed the depth of his character.
ఇంద ఈ డబ్బు తీసుకో గోపాలం. తమరు అప్పు చేసి మరీ దానం చేస్తున్నారా బాబు? సుఖాల్ని కలిసి పంచుకున్నాం, కష్టాల్ని కూడా కలిసే పంచుకుందాం గోపాలం. తీసుకో.
He was not only a great artist, but also an exceptionally noble and humane person, capable of empathy and forgiveness, even in the midst of his own difficulties.
Beautifully said, Radha. Beautifully said. All right, let's let's get to the best part of the movie, the music itself by KV Mahadevan. So KV Mahadevan composed the soundtrack, but what he understood is that this film did not need a lot of background music. It really needed Carnatic music placed at the center of the film, not as a peripheral, not as a decoration, but as the soul of the movie. And apparently, Mangalampalli Balamurali Krishna Garu who was the greatest living Carnatic vocalist of his time, was the original choice for playback. And then he declined. So KV Madhavan turned to SPB. SPB had never sung classical music of this complexity. He was in his early 30s. And rather, when you hear SPB sing for Somayajalu's character Shankara Shastri, the voice is completely different than anything SPB had ever done before or after. So the voice is so different that you forget who is doing the playback, because it literally, especially in that Shankara Nadapar Sareera song, it literally feels like you're hearing Shankar Shastri himself. Clearly one of SPB's greatest accomplishments. He won his first national award. And when I was rewatching the movie, rather, if you watch the opening credits again, there is a very clear, separate recognition for SPB where he says, Nepatya Ganam, na sodarudu Chiranjeevi, SP Balasubramaniamuku naku na Asisulu, K. Viswanath. So even before the movie comes out, Vishwanath had recognized that SPB had done something just remarkable with the movie. One of the greatest musical soundtracks in the history of cinema. Radha apologized at the beginning. I'm going to apologize here. We can do a complete 2-hour podcast on every single song in this movie. The musical soundtrack itself can be a separate podcast. We are going to keep this a little short because it's not a conventional soundtrack. It's a confluence of centuries of tradition and melody. There are ancient Carnatic compositions. There is Tyagaraja, Bhadrachala Ramadasu, Mysore Vasudevachar, Sadasiva Brahmendra. These compositions sit alongside original lyrics written by the great Veturi Sundarramurthy. There is a poem by Kalidasa appears, and Veturi even adds his own lyrics around some of Tyagaraja's original kirtanas, like in Samajavaragamana. So he's working within the classical tradition rather than just replacing it. So we'll walk through a few songs. Radha, since you're trained in Carnatic music, can I ask you to please sing a line as we go through each of these? And then just share a little bit about what they mean to you. The first one is Omkaranadhanus. It is it's a long song, 8 minutes.
I know.
It's the devotional opening of the film. SPB's voice establishing himself as the world of Sankara Shastri before Shankara Shastri utters any dialogues. Pure Raga Sankarabharanam and pure devotion.
अद्वैत सिद्धि की अमरत्व लब्धि की गान में सोपानमु
अद्वैत सिद्धि की अमरत्व लब्धि की गान में सोपानमु.
Any dance lover would naturally feel the urge to move with the music when it plays. As you can see Manju Bhargavi doing like this. Tulasi, being a gifted dancer, instinctively responds to Shankar Shastri's singing, her hands beginning to express the rhythm before she suddenly realizes she is in a public place and gently restrains her urge to dance.
Yeah, you can't stop yourself from trying to dance to that one. The next song is the classical concert centerpiece in the first half, which is Ragam Tanam Pallavi. So this performance showcases Shankar Shastri's mastery over music in the first half. Again, this song is long too, about 6 minutes, but this is SPB at just the peak of his classical range.
భరతాభినయ వేద వ్రత దీక్ష భూని కైలాస సదన కాంభోజి రాగాన కైలాస సదన కాంభోజి రాగాన నీ పద నర్తన సేయగా పద నిరాగం తానం
పల్లవి నామదిలోని కదలాడి కడతేత మన్నవి రాగం తానం పల్లవి.
I had already admired Manju Bhargavi in Yamagola, where she plays the role of Menaka. But here she appears almost ethereal, like an apsara brought to life or a temple sculpture set into motion. Her dance completely dominates the screen. Every gesture feels filled with devotion and grace. Dressed in elegant costumes and traditional temple jewelry, her presence is both stunning and unforgettable.
1,000% agree. And then we get into the song Shankara Nada Sareera Para. I will not even attempt to hum this. I am disqualified. I have no skills to do so. But this song is the philosophical heart of the film. This is a song that articulates everything that the film believes, that music is not just for entertainment, it is really devotion and it is the path to the divine.
ధిక్కరీంద్రజిత హిమగిరీంద్రసిత కంధరా నీలకంధరా క్షుద్రులెరుగని
రుద్రవీణలిన్నిద్రగానమిది అవధరించరా విని ధరించరా శంకరా.
This song is reflecting the deep anguish Shankar Shastri is experiencing at that moment. As his emotions intensify, nature itself seems to respond in sympathy. Thunder rolls, lightning flashes, and heavy rain pours down, mirroring the turmoil within him.
Oh, this is an unbelievable song right before the interval. The next song we'll cover is Samajavara Gamana. So, this is a Tyagaraja Kriti, one of the most beloved compositions in Carnatic traditions. Now, for this song, Veturi improvises. So, he's written some lyrics woven into the original. And then this is a Janaki SPB special. They're both together in this.
Gama, gama, dama, gama, gama,
Sharada! So she sings a line incorrectly, and then in the middle of the song is this just amazing scene where he yells at her, Sharada!
Actually, yeah, this is a beautiful kriti of Tyagaraja Swami in Hindola Raga. Shankar Shastri sternly reprimands his daughter Sharada when, lost in thoughts of her future married life with the young man who came to see her, she inadvertently sings the incorrect swaras while rendering the kriti.
And Chandramohan and Nirmalama, like the mother son, they bring a little bit of levity to what is otherwise very heavy on the emotion, heavy on the music scene, and they both perform their roles so admirably in the movie. Okay, the next song is the closing devotional, and then the lyrics, Veturi at his most transcendent, and SPB just surrendering himself to the song.
నాలోని జీవమై నాకున్న దైవమై వెలుగొందు వేళ మహానుభా
దొరకునా
Absolutely. And we cannot talk about Sankarabharanam without talking about Veturi Sundaram Murthy, because the lyrics for some of these songs are just absolute classics. I talked about when we did the Gitanjali episode, rather, about my family's connection to Veturi Garu. We are related to him. We know the family. We all grew up knowing exactly who he was, the greatest Telugu lyricist of his generation. But one of the stories about Sankarabharanam is that my dad was posted in Chennai, and he and Vetur Sundar Ramurthy Garu had a special bond. And so they used to meet. The film industry still hadn't fully moved to Hyderabad yet. It was still based in Chennai. So Veturi Garu and my dad would meet. And my dad tells the story that Veturi Garu was not well and was in the hospital when writing the lyrics for this movie, but he was so completely engrossed in writing the songs for the movie, and right there from his hospital bed he composed some of the lyrics for the movie. Just great to know him.
And Bharat, what about you? What is your favorite song or moment from this soundtrack?
So we did not cover this song, rather, which is the famous Bro Che Varevurura. But the reason I love this is when it happens, Shankar Shastri says,
ఆకలేసిన బాబు అమ్మ అని ఒకలా అంటాడు, ఎదురు దెబ్బ తగిలిన బిడ్డ అమ్మ అని మరొకలాగంటాడు, నిద్రలో ఉలిక్కిపిడి లేచిన పాపడు అమ్మ అని మరొక విధంగా అంటాడు. ఒక్కొక్క అనుభూతికి ఒక్కో నిర్దిష్టమైన నాదం ఉంది, శృతుంది, స్వరం ఉంది.
he lectures this guy. They come home. For me, the most amazing line in the movie where he says, Ardrata ante bhashaki andhani bhavam. And then he sings that song, and you then really understand what Ardrata means.
Sa sa ni da pa da ni sa ni ni da da pa ma pa da ma ga ma pa da ni sa ni da pa ma ni da pa ma ga ma pa da ma ga ri sa.
ni sada dadani pada ma pada ni sa ni da pa ma ga ma ni da ni pada ma pada ni sa ma ga ri sa re sa ni da pa sa ni da pa ma ga ma pada ni do cheva varura.
This song holds a special place in my musical journey, Bharat. Just like Tulsi's son in that movie, he learned the swaras of this kriti by asking Shankar Shastri's daughter to write on a book and paper. And similarly, I was learning this song with a notebook and pen by my side, eagerly waiting for the song to be played on the radio on Vividha Bharati.
Yeah, no YouTube to just go back and forth and write the whole song down back then. But that's why, rather, we all love the music so much, because he nailed it. He, like he said, it tries to explain those feelings for which words don't exist unless they are composed in the form of a kriti or a raga. So well said. Folks, probably the greatest soundtrack, musical soundtrack in the history of Telugu cinema. All right, rather, let's do some favorite scenes from the movie. I mentioned this earlier in the episode. One of my favorite scenes is when Allu Ramalingaya, who is a lawyer and Shankar Shastri's best friend, and Shankar Shastri has taken Tulasi in. The rumors are spreading in town. Allu Ramalinga's wife calls him aside and starts poking him, asking him around, what's really going on. And then Allu Ramalinga says,
కులం ఏదైనా తులసి నిజంగా తులసి మొక్కంత పవిత్రురాలు. ఆ వినయము, విధేయత, నమ్రత, ఆ భక్తి ఇంకెవ్వరికి రావు.
again, I mean, the genius of K. Viswanath sending such a good message through an ordinary man defending his friend. It's not a big speech, it's not an explanation. He just delivers it in a way where it's just simply spoken.
As I mentioned earlier, Tulsi comes across Shastri teaching his daughter singing on a riverbank. Thrilled by his Shastri's singing, she begins dancing on the riverbank, oblivious of her surroundings. Shastri sees her, appreciates her sincerity, and continues singing.
It is an absolutely amazing scene because there isn't a lot of cinematic touches given to it. It is in the riverbank. Tulasi is singing in the background. There are no sets, just truly beautiful, beautiful scene. My next favorite is Shastri speaking to Tulasi when he has taken her in and she's not helping her around the house.
ఆచార వ్యవహారాలు మనసుల్ని క్రమమైన మార్గంలో పెట్టడానికి తప్ప మనుషుల్ని కులమనే పేరుతో విడదీయడానికి కాదు తులసి.
Traditions exist to guide human beings and not to divide them. And then you see Tulasi's expression when she realizes that he sees her just as a fellow human being. That expression, Radha, is just worth 1,000 words. And then her expression when she hears that is just worth rewatching over and over again. Just a great scene.
One of my favorite scenes is when a group of boys who are fond of Western pop music mock Shankar Shastri and his devotion to classical music. In response, he challenges and effortlessly sings their style of song, proving his mastery. He then gently teaches them that every form of music deserves respect and that no genre should be insulted or looked down upon. This scene beautifully reflects the film's core message: unity in music and respect for all art forms.
But the dialogues he says when he says,
సంగీతానికి భాషా భేదాలు స్వపర భేదాలు ఉండవు. అది ఒక అనంతమైన అమృతవాహి. ఏ జాతి వాడైనా, ఏ మతం వాడైనా, ఏ దేశం వాడైనా ఆ జీవధారలో దాహం తీర్చుకోవచ్చు.
music has no language barriers. It is the eternal river of nectar. And that is the film's core message, stated again and again through different characters, different situations, until it just becomes the very air that the film breathes.
Towards the end of the movie, as the Tulasi's son completes the song, Shankar Shastri, overwhelmed with pride and fulfillment, realizes that the spirit of his music will live on. In a deeply symbolic moment, he removes his abharanam, the sacred Gandapenderam, once he bestowed upon him as an honor and a lifelong part of his identity, and places it on the boy, accepting him as his true musical heir. Having finally witnessed the continuation of his art and values, Shastri breathes his last peacefully.
ఇంద్రియ ప్రతిష్టతి.
It is one of the most heartbreaking and spiritually moving climaxes in Telugu cinema, where music, sacrifice, devotion, and legacy all become one.
Beautifully said, Radha. You had called this film a tapassu, a true tapassu, and I think that is the most perfect word anyone has ever used for it, because just the dedication and devotion that went into every frame. K. Vishwanath, KV Madhavan, Veturi, SPB, Manju Bhargavi, Somayajulu, it is visible and jumps out in every single moment. You feel it, you cannot explain it rationally. You just feel it. And K. Vishwanath Garu, as long as there are people who carry this film in their hearts, you live on too. Radha, thank you so much. Thank you for your love for the film, for your knowledge of this music. You are our first guest host on this podcast. Thank you for singing for us today, for sharing memories that only someone who has lived with these films for decades could share. You came as a fan of Sankarabharanam, a fan of our podcast after the interval, and you gave this episode something that no research, no script, no preparation could have given it. You gave it your all, you gave it your heart. Thank you.
I feel truly blessed to have been born in a Telugu speaking land. It fills me with immense pride to think of the visionary directors, legendary musicians, and gifted singers who have created works that transcend cinema and become part of our lives. Their contributions feel nothing short of divine, a blessing for generations to cherish.
Absolutely. Beautifully said. This has been one of the most special conversations we've had on this podcast. And I hope for every listener who has watched Sankarabharanam, it felt a little like sitting with someone who truly understands why this film matters. Rather, thank you again. Folks, I hope you enjoyed the podcast. Next week, Nilma is back, and we are doing something we have been looking forward to since episode 1. Our first episode about the Big B, Mr. Bachchan himself, a son, a father, an empire, and a score that has been 30 years in the making. Come ready. In the meantime, if you have any suggestions for movies that we should feature, please reach out to us on After the Interval Podcast at gmail.com. I'm Bharat, this is Radha, and thank you for listening to another episode of After the Interval. Alvida, thank you. See you all next week.